And then, he did something impossible. He growled. It wasn't a human noise, it was a low, guttural, vibrating sound that rattled the window panes. Instinct took over. I reached to my utility belt, grabbed my training spray bottle, and aimed. Spritz. Spritz. A fine mist of lukewarm water hit the Alpha billionaire square in the face. The room went deathly silent. Welcome back to Linas Romantasy collection, and a huge hello to our new listeners. You have tuned in just in time for the story of a clumsy dog trainer who accidentally tamed the most dangerous man in the city. If you want to see what happens after the water hits the Alpha, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it with a friend who loves a bad boy. And don't forget to turn on that notification bell. You do not want to miss the fallout of this disaster. I love seeing our pack grow across the globe, so head down to the comment section right now and tell me, where are you listening from today? Let's see which country is representing the hardest. Now, let's find out if Lucky survives that spray bottle. Chapter 1. The cloud over my head. If it was raining in the city, the forecast would usually say partly cloudy, but I, Lucky Hart, would be the only person standing under a personalized thundercloud. Today was no exception. The automatic doors of Pause and Reflect, my grooming salon and training center, were stuck halfway open. Again, I had to army crawl under them to get inside, snagging the belt loop of my cargo pants on the metal track. Perfect, I muttered, brushing dust off my knees. Just perfect. Inside, the air conditioning was making a sound like a dying whale, and the smell of wet dog was thicker than usual. But the loudest sound in the room wasn't the broken AC. It was my sister, Janine. Janine was sitting on the reception counter, her combat boots resting on a stack of invoices, screaming into her cell phone. "Listen to me, you absolute walnut," Janine said, her voice dangerously calm. "I don't care if your van has a flat tire. I don't care if your driver was abducted by aliens. If you don't get someone down here to fix this door within the hour, I will find your office, dismantle your desk with a teaspoon, and mail the pieces to your mother." She paused, listening to the terrified dispatcher on the other end. "Good choice," she said, and hung up. She looked at me, her expression shifting from homicidal to sweet in a split second. "Morning, sis. You have a leaf in your hair." "I have a leaf, a rip in my pants, and I think I stepped in gum in the parking lot." I sighed, walking over to the coffee machine. It sputtered and died as soon as I touched it. "And now the coffee maker is dead. Happy Tuesday." "It's Thursday. Lucky," Janine pointed out. "See? I'm already losing track." From the back room, a distinct, angry scratching sound echoed. It sounded like someone was trying to dig through the concrete floor with steak knives. "How is Sizzle?" I asked, grabbing a bottle of water instead of coffee. "Sizzle is—" "Sizzle," Janine said, hopping off the counter. "She woke up choosing violence today. She tried to bite the broom, the mop, and a golden retriever named Goldie. I had to put her in the heavy-duty crate. Sizzle was my rescue pet. Most people rescued cats or dogs. I, in a moment of supreme bad judgment, had rescued a honey badger that had been illegally smuggled into the city. She was small, black and white, and possessed the rage of 1,000 ancient warriors. "I'll go check on her," I said. "Careful," Janine warned. "She's in a mood." She threw her water bowl at me. I walked to the back. Sizzle was pacing in the large steel crate. When she saw me, she stopped and hissed, flashing teeth that could crack bone. "Hi, baby," I cooed. "Are we having a bad day too?" Sizzle chattered her teeth at me. I sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall. This was my life. A failing business, appliances that hated me, and a pet that wanted to eat my face. "We need money, Sizzle," I whispered to the badger. "The landlord is threatening to evict us if the rent is late again, and with the door broken, customers are canceling." Sizzle just scratched the metal bars, unbothered by my financial ruin. Suddenly the front of the shop went dark. I looked up. Through the glass storefront, 3 massive black SUVs pulled up to the curb, blocking the entire view. They looked like government vehicles, or the mafia. Lucky?" Janine called out from the front. "We have company, rich, scary company." I stood up, dusting off my pants. Great. Maybe they're here to repossess the shampoo bottles. Chapter 2. The Spray Bottle Incident. I walked to the front just as the stuck automatic doors were pried open by two men in dark suits. They were huge, wearing sunglasses indoors, and looked like they chewed gravel for breakfast. Between them walked a man who made the room feel instantly smaller. He was tall, impossibly tall, with broad shoulders that strained against the fabric of a suit that probably cost more than my entire business. His hair was dark, styled perfectly, and his eyes were the color of molten amber. He radiated power, not just CEO power, but something predatory. But the most ridiculous thing was what he was holding. In his left hand, he held a thick leather leash. At the end of the leash sat a dog the size of a small pony. It was an English Mastiff, at least 200 pounds, trembling so hard his jowls were shaking. "I need service," the man said. His voice was deep, a baritone rumble that vibrated in my chest. "Now." Janine crossed her arms. "We're closed for lunch, and also you broke our door." The man ignored her. He looked at me. His gaze was heavy, like a physical weight. "My dog, Puddle. He has a thorn in his paw. He refuses to walk." I looked at the massive beast. Puddle was looking at the shiny linoleum floor with terrified eyes. "He looks like he's afraid of the floor," I said, stepping forward. "He's not hurt. He's anxious." "He is a guard dog," the man snapped. "He is not anxious. Fix him. Remove the thorn." "Sir, you can't just barge in here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the way my heart hammered. "I have appointments. You need to wait your turn." The man took a step toward me. The air in the room suddenly grew hot. The hair on my arms stood up. He loomed over me, his amber eyes flashing. "I do not wait," he snarled. And then he did something impossible. He growled. It wasn't a human noise. It was a low, guttural, vibrating sound that rattled the window panes and made the water in my bottle ripple. It was the sound of a predator warning prey. Puddle whimpered and covered his eyes with his paws. The bodyguards in the back smirked, clearly waiting for me to faint or apologize. I didn't faint. I was tired, I was broke, and I was having a bad day. I didn't have time for rude billionaires with anger issues. Instinct took over. I reached to my utility belt, grabbed my training spray bottle and aimed. Spritz! Spritz! A fine mist of lukewarm water hit the man square in the face. The room went deathly silent. Janine's jaw dropped. The bodyguards froze, their hands reaching for their jackets. "No," I said firmly, using my best bad dog voice. "We do not growl at the staff. We use our inside voices." The man stood there, water dripping from his nose onto his silk tie. He looked stunned. He blinked, clearly processing the fact that a 5'4" woman with messy hair had just assaulted him with tap water. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from the back room. "Oh no," Janine whispered. Sizzle had escaped. The honey badger came skittering around the corner, her claws clicking ominously on the tiles. She saw the strangers. She saw the tension. She chose violence. Sizzle ignored me. She ignored the trembling mastiff. She waddled straight up to the tall man, opened her jaws, and clamped down on the toe of his pristine Italian leather shoe. Puddle let out a high-pitched squeak and scrambled behind my legs, hiding his massive head in the back of my knees. The man looked down at the badger attached to his foot. Then he looked at the water bottle in my hand. He didn't yell. He didn't order his men to kill me. Slowly, he raised a hand to his face. He wiped a droplet of water from his cheek, brought it to his mouth, and licked it. His lips curved into a smirk that was more terrifying than the growl. "Interesting," he murmured. Chapter 3. The Job Offer. "Call off your rat," the man said, his voice strangely calm considering a badger was trying to eat his toes. "She's not a rat," I said defensively. "Sizzle, leave it." Sizzle surprisingly listened. She let go of the shoe, hissed at his ankles, and then trotted over to stand next to me, looking proud of herself. So there I stood, a trembling 200-pound mastiff hiding behind me and a ferocious honey badger guarding my front. The man, who I assumed was some kind of mafia don or eccentric billionaire, stared at me with an intensity that made my knees weak. "You," he said, pointing a finger at me, "you aren't afraid." "I don't have time to be afraid," I said, holstering my spray bottle. "Look, Mr. Moretti," he said. "Rocco Moretti." Janine let out a low whistle. "Moretti Holdings? The guy who owns half the city? Well, Lucky, it was nice knowing you. Can I have your car when you disappear?" Rocco ignored her. He kept his eyes locked on mine. "My dog, Puddle, is useless. He is afraid of his own shadow. He is afraid of tiles. He is afraid of thunder. I need a behaviorist who can handle difficult cases." He looked down at Sizzle, who was currently chewing on the leg of a chair. "If you can tame a honey badger, you can fix my dog," Rocco stated. "I want to hire you." "I'm fully booked," I lied. I wasn't booked. I had 3 clients, and one of them was a hamster with anxiety. "I will pay you double your current annual revenue," Rocco said, smoothing his lapel. "Per month?" I choked on air. "Excuse me?" "And you will live in my penthouse," he added casually. "It is a live-in position. Puddle needs round-the-clock care." "Absolutely not," I said. "I am not moving in with a stranger who growls at people. I have a business to run. I have a lease." Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification. I pulled it out, dread pooling in my stomach. It was an email from my landlord. Eviction notice. Due to a catastrophic system glitch, your rent payments for the quarter have been retroactively reversed and flagged as fraud. Your lease is terminated immediately. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises. I stared at the screen. My bad luck struck again. A banking error? Seriously? "Let me guess," Rocco said, his voice silky. "The universe just kicked you while you were down." I looked up at him. "How did you know?" "I have excellent intuition," he said. "So, Miss Hart, do you want the job, or do you want to be homeless?" Janine hopped off the counter and walked right up to Rocco. She was a foot shorter than him, but she poked him in the chest with a manicured finger. "Listen here, you oversized fur coat," Janine snarled. "If she takes this job and she goes missing, or she cries, or she gets even a paper cut, I will personally come to your fancy penthouse, shave that giant dog, and glue his fur to your expensive suits. Do we have an understanding?" Rocco's beta, the guy standing to his right, looked horrified. But Rocco? Rocco threw his head back and laughed. It was a deep, rich sound that transformed his face from scary to devastatingly handsome. "Your sister has spirit," Rocco said to me. "I like her. Pack your bags, Lucky Heart. We leave in an hour." I looked at the eviction notice. I looked at Sizzle. I looked at the terrifyingly attractive man who had just licked tap water off his face. "Fine," I whispered, "but the badger comes with me." Rocco smirked. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Chapter 4. The Glass Castle. The ride to Rocco Moretti's penthouse was silent, mostly because Sizzle was busy hissing at the tinted windows of the SUV. "She doesn't like confined spaces," I explained, clutching the carrier on my lap, "or moving vehicles, or people breathing too loudly." Rocco sat across from me, his long legs stretched out, looking entirely too comfortable. Puddle, the giant mastiff, was currently drooling on Rocco's polished shoes, but the billionaire didn't seem to mind. He was watching me with that same intense, amber-eyed gaze he'd had in the shop. "You will get used to the space," Rocco said. "The penthouse is expansive." Expansive was an understatement. When we arrived at the Moretti Tower, the elevator was made of glass. As we shot up 40 stories, I pressed my back against the wall, trying not to think about the fact that a single loose screw could send us plummeting. Sizzle, on the other hand, was trying to bite the glass to get to a pigeon flying outside. "Stop it," I whispered to the badger. "We are guests. Be polite." The elevator doors pinged open, revealing a living room that was bigger than my entire childhood home. It was all floor-to-ceiling windows, black marble floors, and sharp, modern furniture that looked like it would hurt if you sat on it wrong. "Welcome home," Rocco said, stepping out. I took one step, and disaster struck. My sneaker lace, which I had double-knotted specifically to avoid this scenario, somehow snagged on the metal track of the elevator door. I pitched forward, arms flailing, heading straight for the unforgiving marble floor. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the impact, waiting for the embarrassment. But the impact never came. An arm wrapped around my waist, solid, warm, and unyielding. I was jerked upward with a force that knocked the wind out of me, landing flush against a hard chest. I opened my eyes. Rocco was holding me, his face inches from mine. He smelled like cedarwood, rain, and expensive scotch. He hadn't just caught me. He had moved faster than humanly possible. One second he was 10 feet away, the next he was saving my nose from being broken. "Careful, Lucky," he rumbled, his voice vibrating against my ribs. "Gravity seems to have a personal vendetta against you." I tripped, I stammered, my heart doing a traitorous little flip. My laces, they conspired against me. Rocco didn't let go. His hand lingered on my waist, his thumb brushing the fabric of my t-shirt. For a moment, the air crackled with that strange electricity again. Puddle let out a soft woof, breaking the spell. Rocco set me upright but didn't step back. "My home is your home, but please try not to die on the entryway. It's bad for property values." "I'll try my best," I managed to say, smoothing my hair, "but I make no promises." Chapter 5. Anomalies. Rocco gave me a tour of the penthouse, which felt less like a home and more like a fortress disguised as a luxury hotel. "Kitchen," he gestured to a stainless steel expanse. "Fully stocked, don't touch the espresso machine. It requires a code." "Gym," he pointed to a room filled with equipment that looked like torture devices. "And this," he stopped in front of a heavy oak door, "is my study. No one enters without knocking. Not even you." "Got it," I said. "Secret evil lair, off limits." Rocco's lip twitched. Something like that. He led me to my room, which was down the hall from his. It was beautiful, plush white carpets, a king-sized bed, and a view of the city skyline. Puddle trotted in after us, immediately jumped onto my bed, and sighed, making himself comfortable on the duvet. "He likes you," Rocco noted, looking annoyed. "He usually growls at guests." "He knows I'm a soft touch," I said, setting Sizzle's carrier down. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to let the beast out before she eats the metal bars." Rocco nodded. "Dinner is at 7. Do not be late." He turned to leave, but as he reached for the doorknob, I saw something that made me pause. Through the open door, I saw one of his bodyguards moving a grand piano in the hallway, by himself, with one hand. The man was casually lifting the 1,000-pound instrument to vacuum underneath it, holding it up like it was made of styrofoam. I blinked. "Rocco?" "Yes?" He paused in the doorway. "That guy," I pointed. He's lifting a piano, with one hand." Rocco didn't even look. He stepped in front of my line of sight, blocking the view with his broad shoulders. "CrossFit," Rocco said smoothly. "My security team takes their fitness very seriously." "That's not CrossFit," I argued. "That's physics-defying." "You are tired, Lucky," Rocco said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You've had a long day. You're seeing things." He closed the door, leaving me alone with a snoring mastiff and a caged badger. I sat on the edge of the bed. I knew what I saw. I was unlucky, clumsy, and occasionally chaotic, but I wasn't crazy. There was something weird about Rocco Moretti and his team of supermen. I reached for my suitcase to unpack. Benji had already dropped my car off in the garage downstairs, miraculously without scratching it, so at least I had my wheels. I grabbed the zipper of my bag. It snapped off instantly in my hand. "Of course," I sighed, tossing the broken metal onto the nightstand. "Welcome to the high life, Lucky." Chapter 6. Night of the Living Badger. By 2 a.m., I was wide awake. The bed was too comfortable. It felt like sleeping on a cloud, which was suspicious. I was used to a mattress that stabbed me in the ribs. Thirsty, I decided to brave the hallway to find the kitchen. Sizzle was asleep in her crate, or so I thought. I crept out of my room. The penthouse was silent, bathed in moonlight. I made it to the kitchen without tripping, which was a personal record. I poured a glass of water and turned to head back. That's when I heard the scream. It wasn't a high-pitched scream, it was a manly, terrified yelp. I ran toward the living room. The lights flared on automatically. There, standing on top of a $3,000 designer coffee table, was one of Rocco's massive bodyguards, the same one I had seen lifting the piano earlier. He was clutching a throw pillow to his chest like a shield. Circling the table, hissing like a tea kettle possessed by a demon, was Sizzle. "Get it away!" the bodyguard yelled, seeing me. "It's immune to fear." I growled at it and it tried to bite my shin. "Sizzle!" I shouted, running over. "Stop terrorizing the help." I scooped the honey badger up. She wiggled, snapping her jaws at the bodyguard, clearly disappointed she didn't get a taste of his ankle. "I am so sorry," I told the man who was trembling. "She's an escape artist. I think she chewed through the latch." "That thing is not natural," the bodyguard whispered, slowly stepping down from the table. "Its eyes. They have no soul." "What is going on here?" Rocco's voice cut through the room like a whip. I spun around. Rocco was standing at the top of the stairs, and he was shirtless. I nearly dropped the badger. Rocco Moretti without a shirt was a weapon of mass distraction. He was carved out of marble, covered in tattoos that looked like tribal markings, with scars crisscrossing his ribs. He wore low-slung sweatpants and a scowl that could freeze hell over. "Your pet," Rocco said, walking down the stairs, his eyes fixed on Sizzle, "is hunting my head of security." "She was just saying hello," I squeaked, trying to keep my eyes on his face and not his abs. Rocco stopped in front of me. He looked at the bodyguard, then at the badger, then at me. "Benji," Rocco said to the guard, "go to bed. You were defeated by a weasel. We will discuss your training tomorrow." The guard, Benji, hung his head in shame and scurried away. Rocco turned his attention to me. He stepped closer, invading my personal space again. The heat radiating off him was intense. "You should be asleep," he murmured. He reached out, and for a second, I thought he was going to touch my face. Instead, he gently pushed a lock of hair behind my ear. "I got thirsty," I whispered. Sizzle stopped wiggling, strangely calm in Rocco's presence. "Go back to bed, Lucky," Rocco said, his voice dropping an octave. "Before the rest of the pack wakes up. They aren't as patient as I am." "Pack?" I asked. "You mean staff?" Rocco's eyes flashed amber in the dim light. "Sure, staff. Good night, Lucky." He turned and walked away, the muscles in his back shifting with every step. I stood there, clutching a badger, realizing my bad luck might have finally led me into something dangerous, and God help me, I wanted to see what happened next. Chapter 7. The Cowardly Lion. The next morning, the sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, illuminating my first challenge, getting a 200-pound dog to walk across the living room. "Come on, Puddle," I cooed, holding a piece of high-grade beef jerky. "It's just marble. It won't bite you." Puddle, the massive English mastiff, sat on the edge of the plush carpet, staring at the expanse of black marble tile like it was a river of lava. He whined, a high-pitched sound that had no business coming out of a dog that size. "He believes the floor is slippery," a deep voice rumbled from behind me. I jumped, nearly dropping the jerky. Rocco was standing by the kitchen island, drinking an espresso. He was dressed in a charcoal three-piece suit that fit him like a second skin. He looked like the cover of Billionaire Monthly, if the magazine had a Deadly Predator edition. "He believes he has no traction," I corrected, tossing the jerky to Puddle, who caught it without moving his paws from the safety of the rug. "It's a confidence issue. Did something happen to him on a tile floor?" Rocco took a sip of his coffee. "He slipped once, 3 years ago. And he's been holding a grudge against geology ever since?" I shook my head. "Okay, we need rugs, lots of them. We need to build a bridge." "I am not covering my Italian marble with rugs," Rocco said flatly. "Do you want a dog that moves or a dog that acts like a throw pillow?" I countered. Rocco narrowed his amber eyes. He wasn't used to people arguing with him. I braced myself for a growl or a firing squad. Instead, he pulled out his phone. "Benji," he said into the device. "Buy rugs, all of them. Yes, I know, just do it." He hung up and looked at me. Happy? Ecstatic. Just then, a horrific crunching sound came from the corner. We both looked. Sizzle, my honey badger, had managed to open the refrigerator. I swear that animal had thumbs and was currently dragging a whole frozen turkey across the floor. "That was for Thanksgiving," Rocco said, watching his holiday dinner slide by. "She likes poultry," I said apologetically, rushing over to wrestle the bird away from the badger. "Sizzle, drop it. We do not eat the Alpha's turkey." I froze. I hadn't meant to call him Alpha. It just slipped out because he acted like one. Rocco didn't look offended. He looked pleased. He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms, watching me play tug-of-war with a badger. "You can keep the turkey," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "I prefer red meat anyway." The way he said it made shivers run down my spine. I really hoped he was talking about steak. Chapter 8. The Luck Shift. By noon, the rugs had arrived. Benji, the terrified bodyguard from the night before, laid them out in a path, creating a safe bridge for Puddle. But as the day went on, I started noticing something strange. Usually, my life was a series of unfortunate events. If I touched a vase, it fell. If I walked near a table, I stubbed my toe. If I drank water, I choked. Today, however, the laws of physics seemed to be malfunctioning. I was in the kitchen, reaching for a glass on a high shelf. True to form, my fingers slipped. The heavy crystal tumbler plummeted toward the stone countertop. I flinched, waiting for the crash, but it didn't crash. A hand, large, tanned, and scarred, blurred into my vision. Rocco caught the glass inches from the counter. He didn't just catch it, he plucked it out of the air with a speed that made my eyes hurt to watch. "Careful," he murmured, setting the glass down gently. He was standing right behind me. I hadn't even heard him approach. Thanks, I breathed. "I usually break at least one glass a week. It's my quota." "Not while I am here," he said softly. An hour later, I was walking down the floating staircase. My socks slid on the polished wood. My feet flew out from under me. I prepared for death, or at least a concussion. I didn't hit the stairs. I hit a wall of muscle. Rocco was there again. He had been at the bottom of the stairs, and now he was halfway up, his arm wrapped securely around my waist, holding me suspended before I could tumble. "Do you have a death wish, Lucky?" he asked, his face inches from mine. His breath was warm against my cheek. "I told you," I gasped, clutching his lapels to steady myself. "I'm cursed. Gravity hates me." "Then I will have a talk with gravity," Rocco said seriously. He set me down but kept his hands on my hips for a second longer than necessary. "How are you doing that?" I whispered, looking up at him. "You move like you're edited in post-production." Rocco's expression tightened. He pulled away, adjusting his cuffs. "I have excellent reflexes. Do not overthink it." He walked away, but I noticed something. He didn't go to his study. He sat in the living room with a book, positioning himself so he had a clear view of me at all times. He wasn't reading. He was watching. He was on guard duty. And for the first time in my chaotic, clumsy life, I didn't feel like a disaster waiting to happen. I felt safe. It was a terrifyingly addictive feeling. Chapter 9. The Revolving Door of Doom. "I need to go to the office," Rocco announced at 2 p.m. "You are coming with me." "Why?" I asked from the floor, where I was teaching Puddle to shake. He was currently just slapping my hand with his giant paw. "Because Puddle has separation anxiety and will howl if I leave," Rocco said, "and because I do not trust you alone in my house with that badger. Sizzle is currently eyeing the chandelier like it is a jungle gym. So we packed up the circus. Me, Rocco, a nervous 200-pound dog, and Sizzle, contained in a heavy-duty travel crate. We took the black SUV to Moretti Holdings. The building was a skyscraper of glass and steel in the center of the city. It looked intimidating. "Stay close," Rocco commanded as we exited the car. "My employees are efficient. They do not like disruptions." We approached the entrance. It was a massive, automatic revolving door made of heavy brass and glass. I hate revolving doors. They are traps designed to humiliate me. "I'll use the side door," I suggested. "Nonsense," Rocco said, striding forward. I stepped into the compartment behind him, holding Puddle's leash. Sizzle's carrier was strapped over my shoulder. Disaster struck. My oversized purse strap got caught on the handle of the door as it spun. The door jammed, the sensor malfunctioned. The heavy brass panel kept pushing, pinning me against the glass. "Stuck!" I yelped. "I'm stuck!" Puddle started to whine. The lobby of the prestigious company fell silent as people watched the CEO's companion get crushed by the architecture. The door pushed harder. I felt the glass digging into my ribs. Panic flared. "Rocco!" I gasped. Rocco spun around. He saw me pinned. His eyes went wide, then they went dark. He didn't call for maintenance. He didn't try to wiggle the door. He placed one hand on the spinning brass panel that was crushing me, and he shoved. There was a screech of tearing metal. Sparks flew from the ceiling motor. With a roar that sounded suspiciously like a snarl, Rocco forced the hydraulic door backward against the gears. The metal frame bent under his palm. He literally broke the revolving door mechanism with one hand to free me. The glass shattered harmlessly away from me, held back by his body as he shielded me. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his voice rough, checking my arms frantically. The entire lobby was staring. Mouths were open. Benji, who had just parked the car, ran in and nearly fainted when he saw the twisted metal of the door frame. "I'm fine," I squeaked, trembling. "But, Rocco, you just bent steel." Rocco looked at the destroyed door, then at the staring employees. He straightened his tie, looking completely unbothered. "It was a faulty hinge," he announced to the silent lobby. "Benji, have it replaced." He grabbed my hand, his grip firm and possessive, and pulled me toward the elevators. "Come, we are taking the stairs next time." As we walked away, I looked back at the door. There was a handprint indented into the brass. A perfect handprint. Faulty hinge, my ass. Chapter 10. The Shark Tank. The elevator ride to the top floor was swift, silent, and awkward. Rocco was still holding my hand. His grip was loose enough to be polite, but firm enough to say, "You are mine, and I am not letting you wander into traffic." Benji, the head of security, was staring at the dented brass door of the lobby on the security monitors on his phone, looking pale. "Mr. Moretti," Benji whispered, "you bent the structural frame. How am I supposed to explain this to the insurance company? Act of God?" "Tell them it was a manufacturing defect," Rocco said coolly as the doors opened, "and get Lucky a new bag. Her strap is ruined." We stepped into the boardroom. If I thought the lobby was intimidating, this room was a whole new level of terrifying. It was a long, cavernous space, dominated by a table made of a single slab of ancient redwood. Seated around it were 12 men and women who looked less like board members and more like sharks in bespoke suits. They didn't just look at us, they tracked us. Their heads turned in unison. "Gentlemen, ladies," Rocco announced, guiding me to the chair at the right hand of the head of the table. "This is Miss Hart. She is consulting." "Consulting on what?" asked a man with silver hair and eyes that looked like cold steel. His nameplate read Charles Stanton. "She looks like she fell out of a laundry basket." I looked down. My cargo pants were smudged with dirt, my t-shirt had a paw print on it, and I was holding a neon green carrier containing a hissing honey badger. "I'm a behaviorist," I said, trying to sound professional. "And for the record, this is a tactical laundry look." Puddle, usually terrified of everything, trotted under the massive table and curled up on Rocco's feet. Sizzle, sensing the tension in the room, let out a low scratching sound against the plastic of her crate. "Is that a weasel?" a woman with sharp cheekbones asked, wrinkling her nose. "It's a honey badger," I corrected. "Her name is Sizzle, and I wouldn't make eye contact. She takes it as a challenge." Rocco sat at the head of the table. The shift in his demeanor was instant. He went from protective boyfriend vibe to king of the jungle. He leaned back, spreading his arms over the chairs. "Miss Hart is here to assist with Puddle," Rocco said, his voice dropping to that dangerous rumble. "And she is my guest. If anyone has a problem with her presence, speak now so I can accept your resignation." Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. I sat down, trying to make myself small. I reached for the pitcher of water on the table. My elbow immediately knocked over a bowl of mints. They scattered across the polished wood table with a sound like hail on a tin roof, rolling toward the serious-faced board members. One mint rolled all the way to Charles Stanton, and stopped against his expensive watch. "Oops," I whispered. "My bad." Rocco didn't look embarrassed. He looked at Stanton. "Eat the mint, Marcus." Marcus ate the mint. Chapter 11. Alpha Dynamics. The meeting began. I expected boring talk about stocks, dividends, and quarterly projections. Instead, the conversation felt strangely primal. "The Northern Territory is encroaching," Stanton said, leaning forward. "Mercer is poaching our clients. He smells weakness, Rocco. He thinks you're distracted." "Mercer is a scavenger," Rocco dismissed, tapping a pen on the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "Let him scavenge. If he crosses the line, I will crush him." "He's not just scavenging," the sharp-cheeked woman argued. "He's marking territory. He bought the logistics firm on the east side. That's our hunting ground." Hunting ground? I thought. These guys really take corporate real estate seriously. I watched them. As a dog behaviorist, I spent my life reading nonverbal cues, and this room was screaming with them. Stanton was leaning forward. An aggression posture. He was challenging authority. The woman was tapping her neck, a sign of submission mixed with anxiety. Rocco was completely still. That was the scariest part. He was the confident alpha who didn't need to move to prove he was in charge. "We need to strike back," Stanton slammed his hand on the table. Puddle whimpered under the table. Sizzle hissed. Rocco's eyes narrowed. A low sound vibrated in his chest, too deep to be a human clearing his throat. "Marcus," Rocco warned, "lower your voice." "No," Stanton stood up. "You are too passive. The pack needs—" "The company," Rocco corrected sharply. "The company needs stability." Stanton bared his teeth. I swear, for a second his teeth looked sharper than normal. The tension in the room was so thick it was suffocating. Violence was about 3 seconds away. I didn't think. I just reacted. I treated them exactly like I treated a room full of rowdy golden retrievers. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my training clicker, and pressed it. Click-clack. The sound was sharp and distinctive. Every single head in the room snapped toward me. Stanton stopped mid-shout. Rocco looked at me, surprised. "Eyes on me," I said in my cheerful, high-pitched training voice. "We are getting a little overstimulated, aren't we? Let's take a breath. Big feelings are okay, but yelling is for outside." I held up a bag of beef jerky treats I kept for Puddle. "Who is being a good boy?" I asked Stanton. "Are you being a good boy, Marcus? Because good boys sit down." Stanton looked at me like I had grown a second head. He looked at the jerky. He looked at Rocco. Rocco's shoulders started to shake. He covered his mouth with his hand, trying to hide a laugh. "Sit down, Marcus," Rocco said, his eyes dancing with amusement. "She's offering you a treat. Don't be rude." Slowly, confused and clearly insulted, Marcus sat down. "Good sit," I chirped. "Very nice engagement." I placed a piece of jerky on the table in front of him. The tension broke. The woman with sharp cheekbones actually giggled. Rocco looked at me with an expression that could melt steel beams, pure, unadulterated admiration. "You," Rocco whispered to me, "are dangerous." Chapter 12. Enter the Bad Mouth. The meeting was winding down when a commotion erupted outside the double oak doors. "Ma'am, you cannot go in there. Ma'am, please put down the stapler." It was the receptionist. And then, a familiar voice cut through the heavy wood. Touch me again, you synchronized swimmer reject, and I will sue you for emotional distress and bad fashion choices." The doors banged open. My sister Janine stood there. She was wearing a leather jacket, combat boots, and holding a plastic bag of takeout. Benji was standing behind her, looking flushed, breathless, and completely love-struck. "Janine!" I gasped. "What are you doing here?" "You forgot your inhaler," Janine announced, marching into the room like she owned the building. She tossed my inhaler onto the redwood table. "And I brought lunch, but apparently getting past the front desk requires a blood sacrifice." She looked around the room, taking in the 12 intense, staring board members. "Who died?" Janine asked. "Why does it smell like testosterone and cheap cologne in here?" Charles Stanton, who was still holding the piece of beef jerky I gave him, sneered. "Who is this person? Rocco, is this a daycare center?" Janine slowly turned her head toward Marcus. She looked him up and down, inspecting his expensive suit, his slicked-back silver hair, and his arrogant sneer. "Wow," Janine said flatly. "I didn't know they made Ken dolls in the midlife crisis edition." The entire room gasped. Benji choked on air in the doorway. Marcus turned purple. "I beg your pardon?" "You heard me, Silver Fox," Janine said, stepping closer. "You look like the kind of guy who yells at waitresses because the ice in his water is too cold. You have the personality of a damp paper towel. Sit down before you hurt yourself." Rocco didn't just smile this time. He let out a loud, barking laugh. It was a joyous sound that startled everyone. "She stays," Rocco announced, pointing at Janine. "Benji, get her a chair." "I don't need a chair," Janine said, leaning against the wall and crossing her arms. "I'm just here to make sure my sister hasn't been eaten by the big bad wolf yet." She glanced at Rocco. "You haven't eaten her, have you?" Rocco looked at me. His gaze dropped to my lips, then back up to my eyes. The air between us suddenly felt very thin. "Not yet," Rocco murmured. I blushed so hard I felt my ears burn. Sizzle, sensing the shift in the room, let out a happy little squeak from her crate. "Okay," I said, standing up and knocking my chair over in the process. Crash. "Meeting adjourned. Who wants tacos?" As I scrambled to pick up the chair, Rocco was there instantly, helping me. "Leave it," he said softly, his hand lingering on my arm. "Let's eat, and then we need to talk about that clicker." I had a feeling my life at Moretti Holdings was going to be anything but boring. Chapter 13. The Disaster Date. "Wear the red dress," Janine had ordered over the phone. "The one that makes you look like a dangerous salsa dancer." "I can't wear that," I had argued, staring at myself in the penthouse mirror. "It has heels. Heels are just stilts designed to kill me." "Wear the dress, Lucky, or I tell Benji you sleep with a teddy bear named Mr. Fluffernutter." So I wore the dress. Rocco took me to Il Destino, a restaurant so exclusive you probably needed a blood sample just to make a reservation. He had rented out the entire rooftop terrace. It was romantic, breathtaking, and terrifyingly full of breakable objects. "You look," Rocco started, his voice trailing off as I stepped out of the elevator. His amber eyes darkened, scanning me from my wobbly ankles to the plunging neckline of the red dress. He cleared his throat, a sound that rumbled like distant thunder. "Adequate." "Adequate," I raised an eyebrow. "I shaved my legs for this. I expect at least a stunning or a moderately attractive." Rocco stepped closer, grabbing my hand to steady me as a gust of wind threatened to blow me over. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. "If I tell you how you really look," he whispered, "we will not make it to dinner. We will go back upstairs and I will ruin that dress." My face heated up so fast I thought I might spontaneously combust. "Dinner? Yes. Food? Let's do that." We sat down. The waiter, a man named Pierre who looked like he judged people for a living, poured wine. "So," Rocco said, leaning back, "tell me about your family, besides the sister with the weaponized vocabulary." "That's mostly it," I said, reaching for my bread roll. "My parents are free spirits. They travel in an RV. They think I'm quaint for having a job. I took a bite of the roll. A crumb went down the wrong pipe. I started to cough. Then I started to choke. Pierre the waiter looked horrified. Rocco didn't panic. He stood up, walked around the table, and hit me on the back with just enough force to dislodge the crumb but not break my spine. "Breathe," he commanded. I gasped for air, tears streaming down my face. I'm okay. The bread attacked me." "It's sourdough," Rocco said seriously, handing me water. "It can be aggressive." I laughed, wiping my eyes. "You know, this is usually the part where guys excuse themselves to the bathroom and never come back. I'm a lot to handle, Rocco. I'm a walking liability." Rocco sat back down, but he moved his chair closer to mine. He took my hand, his thumb tracing the veins in my wrist. "I have spent my life controlling everything, Lucky," he said, his voice low and honest. "My company, my pack, my staff. Everyone does exactly what I say when I say it. It is efficient, and it is incredibly boring." He looked at me with an intensity that made my breath hitch again. "You are the only thing I cannot predict," he said. "You are chaos, and I find I am addicted to it." I stared at him, my heart pounding against my ribs. "So, you like me because I might accidentally set the table on fire?" Rocco smirked. "I like you because when you set the table on fire, you look beautiful doing it." Chapter 14. The Alleyway Ambush. The dinner was surprisingly accident-free after the bread incident. We walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air. The valet stand was empty. "Where is the valet?" I asked, looking around the deserted street. "And where is your car?" Rocco stopped. His posture changed instantly. The relaxed, flirting date was gone. The Alpha was back. His shoulders tensed, and his head tilted slightly, as if listening to a frequency I couldn't hear. "Get behind me," Rocco ordered. His voice wasn't a request. It was a command. "Why? Did I forget to tip Pierre?" "Lucky. Now." I stepped behind him just as 4 shadows detached themselves from the alleyway next to the restaurant. They were men, big and bulky, wearing leather jackets that looked too tight. But it wasn't their fashion choices that scared me. It was their eyes. In the dim streetlights, their eyes seemed to glow with a faint, unnatural yellow light. "Rocco Moretti," the lead man sneered. He had a scar running down his cheek and looked like he chewed rocks. "Mercer sends his regards." "Tell Mercer he needs better delivery boys," Rocco said calmly. He unbuttoned his suit jacket. "And tell him if he steps into my territory again, I will mount his head on my office wall." "We aren't here for you," the scarred man said. His gaze shifted past Rocco, locking onto me. "We're here for the anchor." My stomach dropped. Anchor? Was that me? "Touch her," Rocco's voice dropped to that vibrating, subsonic growl, "and you will pray for death." The men lunged. It happened so fast my brain couldn't process it. Rocco moved like a blur. He caught the first man's fist, twisted it with a sickening crunch, and threw him into a dumpster like he weighed nothing. But there were 4 of them. 2 tackled Rocco, pinning him against the brick wall. The 4th man, the one with the scar, sprinted toward me. "Run, Lucky!" Rocco roared, struggling against the 2 men holding him. I turned to run, my heel caught in a grate. Of course, my bad luck. The timing was impeccable. I stumbled, falling to my knees. The scarred man grabbed my arm, yanking me up. His grip was like iron. "You're coming with us, sweetheart," he hissed. "Mercer wants to see what makes the great Moretti tick." "Let go of me," I screamed, fumbling for my purse. I had a small can of pepper spray, but my hands were shaking. "Help!" I yelled. Suddenly, a loud metallic thump came from Rocco's sports car, parked just a few feet away. We had brought Sizzle with us. I hadn't wanted to leave her alone at the penthouse after she tried to eat the Wi-Fi router. She was in her heavy-duty travel crate in the back seat. The car rocked. A high-pitched, demonic screeching sound filled the air. "What is that?" the scarred man asked, distracted. "That," I whispered, realizing the car door wasn't fully latched because I had closed it with my hip earlier, "is your worst nightmare." Chapter 15. Honey Badger Don't Care. The rear door of the sports car flew open. Sizzle didn't step out. She launched herself like a furry missile. She hit the pavement with a click of claws and immediately assessed the situation. She saw me. She saw the man grabbing me. She made her choice. With a sound that was half hiss, half scream, Sizzle charged. She clamped her jaws onto the scarred man's ankle. "Ah!" the man shrieked, letting go of me. He tried to shake his leg, but Sizzle was a honey badger. She had loose skin, a thick skull, and zero concept of defeat. She held on, growling and shaking her head. "Get it off! Get it off!" he screamed, dancing around on one leg. The two men holding Rocco were distracted by the screaming. That was all Rocco needed. With a roar, Rocco threw them off. He grabbed one man by the throat and slammed him into the pavement. He punched the second man so hard I heard the air crack. Silence fell over the alley except for the sounds of the scarred man sobbing as he tried to pry Sizzle off his boot. "Sizzle, leave it!" I shouted, scrambling up. Sizzle ignored me. She was having the time of her life. Rocco walked over to the scarred man. He looked at the thug, then at the badger attached to his leg. "You should run," Rocco told the man, "before she decides to climb higher." The man's eyes went wide with horror. He frantically unlaced his boot, kicked it off, with Sizzle still attached to it, and limped away into the darkness as fast as he could. His friends scrambled after him, terrified. Sizzle stood there, victorious, shaking the empty boot like a war trophy. Rocco turned to me. His suit was rumpled, his knuckles were bruised, and his eyes were glowing bright amber. He looked terrifying. He looked magnificent. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, rushing over. He grabbed my face in his hands, tilting my head back to check for injuries. "Did they touch you?" "I'm fine," I breathed, my heart hammering against his chest. I tripped. Again." "You tripped." Rocco let out a breathy laugh, resting his forehead against mine. "And then you released the Kraken." He looked down at Sizzle, who was now trying to eat the shoelaces of the stolen boot. "I take it back," Rocco said, pulling me into a crushing hug. "I love that animal. She gets a steak tonight, a tomahawk steak." I buried my face in his neck, smelling the scent of cedar and adrenaline. "Can I have a steak too?" Rocco kissed the top of my head. "Lucky, you can have the whole damn restaurant." "Even the bread?" "Especially the bread." As we stood there in the alley, surrounded by the aftermath of violence, with a badger eating a boot at our feet, I realized two things. 1. My luck was definitely changing. 2. I was falling in love with a man who could bend steel, and he was falling for a woman who weaponized poultry and badgers. It was a match made in chaos. Chapter 16. The Hurricane, named Janine. The drive back to the penthouse was silent, but it was a loud silence, the kind where you can hear the furious typing of text messages. "I texted Janine," I admitted, staring at my phone screen. "I told her we had a minor incident. I didn't want her to worry." Rocco gripped the steering wheel so hard the leather creaked. "A minor incident? Lucky, 4 wolves tried to kidnap you. A badger ate a boot. That is not minor. In my life, that's a Tuesday." We pulled into the private garage of Moretti Tower. Benji and the security team were already waiting, but they weren't the only ones. Leaning against a concrete pillar, arms crossed, tapping a combat boot rhythmically against the floor, was Janine. "Oh God," Benji whispered, looking terrified. "She's here. I didn't let her in, boss. She hacked the keypad." "She used my birthday," I sighed. "It's not exactly Mr. Robot levels of hacking." Rocco stopped the car. Before he could even open my door, Janine was there. She ripped the door open. "Out," she commanded. "Let me see you." I stepped out. "I'm fine, Jen, really." Sizzle handled it. Janine grabbed my face, turning it left and right. She checked my arms. She checked my legs. Then she saw the small scrape on my knee where I had tripped. Her eyes narrowed. She turned slowly to face Rocco. Rocco Moretti was a billionaire alpha. He could bend steel. He commanded an army, but under Janine's glare, he looked like a schoolboy who had forgotten his homework. You had one job, Janine said, her voice dangerously low. One job, wolf boy. Keep her safe, and you bring her back bleeding. It was a great, Rocco said, holding his hands up slightly. She tripped. I don't care if she tripped over air molecules, Janine shouted. She poked Rocco in the chest. You are supposed to be the big bad alpha. If gravity tries to hurt her, you punch gravity in the face. Do you understand me? Benji stepped forward, trying to be helpful. Miss Hart, please lower your voice. The alpha is... Janine spun on him. Zip it, discount G.I. Joe. Unless you want me to upload your browser history to the company newsletter, you will stay out of this. Benji's mouth snapped shut. He looked at me with wide eyes. I think he was in love. Rocco didn't get angry. He looked at Janine with genuine respect. You are right, Rocco said solemnly. I failed. It won't happen again. It better not, Janine huffed. She looked at the back seat, where Sizzle was currently asleep in her crate, hugging the stolen boot. At least someone did their job. Remind me to buy that rat a fruit basket. She's a badger, I corrected automatically. She's a hero, Janine stated. Now get my sister upstairs and ice that knee. If she gets so much as a bruise, I'm shaving the dog. Chapter 17. Anchor up in the penthouse, the adrenaline finally crashed. I sat on the edge of the massive bathtub in the master suite while Rocco rummaged through a first aid kit. I can do it myself, I said, wincing as I tried to clean the scrape on my knee. Naturally, I dropped the cotton ball. It rolled into the drain. See? I'm useless. Rocco didn't say a word. He knelt in front of me, ignoring the damp floor ruining his suit trousers. He took a fresh cloth, dipped it in antiseptic, and gently, so gently it made my heart ache, dabbed at my knee. You are not useless, he said, his voice rough. You are the anchor. That guy in the alley said that, I whispered. What does it mean, Rocco? Rocco stopped. He looked up at me. His amber eyes were swirling with gold flecks, the wolf close to the surface. Wolves. We are driven by instinct, he explained, his hand resting on my calf. Rage, territory, violence. It is a constant noise in my head, a static that never goes away. He took my hand and placed it over his heart. It was beating slow and steady. Since the moment you sprayed me with that water, he said, a small smile touching his lips, the noise stopped. You calm the beast, Lucky. You anchor me to humanity. That makes you very valuable and very dangerous to my enemies. So I'm like... Emotional Xanax? Rocco laughed, the sound vibrating against my palm. Something like that? He leaned in. The air in the bathroom grew heavy and hot. He was so close I could count his eyelashes. I was terrified tonight, he admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. Not of the fight, but of losing you. I'm hard to get rid of, I murmured, like glitter or student loans. Rocco didn't laugh this time. He closed the distance and kissed me. It wasn't a tentative first kiss. It was a claiming. It was possessive and desperate and tasted of wine and danger. His hand slid up my thighs, pulling me to the edge of the tub so I was pressed against his chest. I wrapped my arms around his neck, burying my fingers in his hair. For a moment, I forgot about the bad luck. I forgot about the hitmen. I just felt him. Solid. Real. Mine. He pulled back slightly, breathing hard, his forehead resting against mine. His eyes were glowing brightly now. If we don't stop, he growled, I will not be able to stop. Maybe I don't want you to stop, I whispered, feeling bold. Rocco groaned, a sound torn from his throat. He kissed me one last time, hard, then stood up abruptly, putting distance between us. You are injured, he said, his voice strained, and you are exhausted. I will not take advantage of you after a trauma. He was being noble. It was annoying, but it was also why I was falling for him. Go to bed, Lucky, he ordered gently. Puddle is guarding your door. I have work to do. Chapter 18. The War Room. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon and the sound of heavy metal music. I stumbled into the kitchen. The scene before me was surreal. Sizzle was sitting on the kitchen island, which she was definitely not allowed on, eating a raw tomahawk steak that was bigger than her head. She looked like a queen. Puddle, the 200-pound mastiff, was sitting on the floor staring up at the badger with pure hero worship. He gave a little woof of admiration every time Sizzle took a bite. "They have bonded," Rocco said. He was standing by the espresso machine looking fresh and lethal in a navy suit. He hadn't slept, I could tell. There was a tension in his shoulders. "Did you sleep?" I asked, grabbing a mug. I managed not to drop it, mostly because Rocco slid it across the counter to me before I could reach for it. "No," he said. "We found the men." "The men from the alley?" "They are dealt with," Rocco said. His tone made it clear I didn't want to know the details. "But Mercer has gone underground. He knows he crossed a line." "So what happens now?" "Now," Rocco said, turning to me, "we go to war. Corporate war. I am freezing his assets. I am buying his debts. I am going to bankrupt him before lunch." "Sounds festive," I said. "Can I help?" "You can help by staying inside," Rocco said firmly. "Benji is downstairs upgrading the security. The windows are now bulletproof. The elevator requires a retina scan." "And Sizzle?" I pointed to the badger, who was currently dragging the steak bone across the marble counter. "Sizzle is the last line of defense," Rocco said seriously. "I have ordered her a tactical vest." I stared at him. "You're joking." "I never joke about security." He walked over and kissed me on the forehead. It was brief. But the electricity was still there. "I have to go to the office. Benji stays here with you. Do not leave. Do not open the door. Do not answer the phone unless it is me or Janine." "Rocco," I grabbed his lapel. "Be careful. My bad luck. It tends to splash onto people around me." "Lucky," he smirked, adjusting his tie. "I am the Alpha. I make my own luck." He turned and walked out the door. As soon as the elevator chimed, I looked at Sizzle. "He thinks I'm going to sit here and knit while he fights a war," I told the badger. Sizzle burped. "Exactly," I said. "He clearly doesn't know me very well." I pulled out my phone. It was cracked, but it worked. I dialed Janine. "Jen," I said when she answered, "bring your laptop." "And bring the bad mouth. We have some digging to do." Chapter 19. Operation Glitter Bomb. Getting Janine into the most secure penthouse in the city took exactly 12 minutes. "The retina scanner was tricky," Janine said, dropping her heavy combat boots onto Rocco's pristine white couch. "I know Rocco offered me a badge, but I refused to be tracked by corporate satellites, so I told the guard downstairs I was delivering emergency medication for the Alpha's condition." Benji, who was standing guard by the door, looked pale. "What condition?" "It's a fungal thing," Janine whispered loudly. "Very contagious. Don't look him in the eye." Benji looked horrified. I sighed, setting down a tray of snacks. "Janine, stop traumatizing the staff. We have work to do." We had turned Rocco's dining table into a command center. Janine had 3 laptops open. I had a notepad and a pen that was already leaking ink onto my fingers. Sizzle was wearing a small camouflage bandana that I found in Puddle's toy box. She looked ready for war. "Okay," Janine said, cracking her knuckles. "Rocco is hitting Mercer financially, but guys like Mercer always have a back door, a slush fund, a hidden account. We need to find it." "I can help," I said enthusiastically. "You can sit there and not touch the electronics," Janine ordered. "Remember the time you tried to update your phone and accidentally deleted the internet for the entire neighborhood?" "That was a coincidence," I mumbled, grabbing a bag of pretzels. "Benji!" Janine barked without looking up. "Make me coffee, black, like my soul." Benji scrambled to the kitchen. "Yes, ma'am." "He likes you," I noted, watching Benji try to operate the espresso machine with shaking hands. "He's terrified of me," Janine corrected. "It's the same thing." She started typing furiously. Screens flashed with code and maps. I felt useless. My boyfriend? Was he my boyfriend? Was out there fighting a corporate war, and I was eating pretzels. I need to do something, I said, standing up. I'm going to organize the files. I reached for a stack of papers Rocco had left on the side table. As I did, my elbow clipped the edge of the open pretzel bag. The bag flew. Pretzels rained down like salty hail. But the worst part was the glass of grape juice I had poured for myself. It tipped over. The purple liquid surged across the table, heading straight for Janine's main laptop. "No!" Janine screamed, diving for the computer. It was too late. The juice hit the keyboard. The screen flickered. Sparks flew. "I killed it," I whispered, covering my face. "I killed the investigation. I am the worst spy in history." Chapter 20. The Blue Screen of Destiny. Janine stared at the laptop. The screen had turned a terrifying shade of blue. Then it went black. Then white text started scrolling rapidly down the screen. "Lucky," Janine said slowly. "What kind of juice was that?" "Organic Concord grape?" I squeaked. "Well, apparently it's highly conductive," Janine muttered, typing on a secondary keyboard she had plugged in. "You didn't short the motherboard. You shorted the security firewall." What? "The juice hit the biometric sensor and the escape key at the exact same time," Janine explained, her eyes widening. "It caused a glitch in the encryption software I was trying to crack. It rebooted the system in safe mode, bypassing the password." The screen flickered again, and suddenly a folder popped open. It wasn't encrypted anymore. "Holy cow," Janine breathed. "We're in." We crowded around the screen. It was Mercer's private ledger, but it wasn't just numbers, it was a list of properties. "Look at this," I pointed to a highlighted entry. "The Silver Moon Charity for Wayward Pups." "A charity?" Janine scoffed. "Mercer? The guy who wears snakeskin boots? I doubt it." I leaned closer, squinting at the details. "Jen, look at the expenses. They aren't buying dog food or paying vet bills. They're buying nitrates and high-grade silver." "He's laundering money," Janine realized. "He's using a fake dog shelter to buy illegal weapons. Silver bullets, explosives." "And look at the location." I tapped the screen. The address for the charity was an abandoned warehouse in the meatpacking district. "That's where he's hiding," I said, a chill running down my spine. "That's his base. Rocco is freezing his bank accounts, but Mercer doesn't care about banks. His real assets are in that warehouse." Janine looked at me, then at the spilled juice, then back at me. "You clumsy genius," she said, grinning. "You just stumbled your way into the smoking gun." "I call it tactical incompetence," I said, wiping grape juice off my arm. Just then, Rocco's face appeared on the large TV screen on the wall, a video call. He looked tired. His tie was loosened and there was a cut on his lip that hadn't been there this morning. "Lucky." His voice rumbled through the speakers. "Are you safe?" "I'm fine," I said, walking up to the screen. "Rocco, what happened to your face?" "Negotiations were aggressive," Rocco said tightly. "Mercer is stalling. He has hidden assets we cannot find. We are deadlocked." "Actually," I said, holding up the juice-stained laptop, "about that." Chapter 21. The Delivery Service. "You found what?" Rocco asked, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the data Janine was holding up to the camera. "A weapons cache," Janine said smugly, "disguised as a puppy orphanage, which honestly is just low, even for a villain." "I need that file," Rocco said, standing up. "If I show this to the council, Mercer is finished. He will be stripped of his rank and thrown in a hole." "I'll email it," Janine said. "You can't," Rocco said. "The council is old-fashioned. They demand physical delivery of the decrypted ledger. If you send it via email, Mercer's lawyers will claim the transmission was intercepted and altered." "I'll bring it to you," I said immediately. "No," Rocco roared. "Absolutely not. You stay in the tower. It is not safe." "Rocco, you're stuck in a meeting," I argued. "If you leave, you forfeit the negotiation. Someone has to bring the drive to you." "Benji can do it," Rocco said. We all looked at Benji. He was currently trying to get Sizzle out of his backpack. Sizzle was hissing and shredding the nylon. Benji looked like he was about to cry. "Benji is compromised," Janine noted. The badger owns him now. I'm coming, I said firmly. I'll take the service elevator. I'll wear a disguise. I'll be invisible. Lucky? Your car is bright orange, Rocco growled. You are about as invisible as a disco ball. Then I'll take a taxi. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I ended the call before he could argue further. He is going to be so mad, Benji whimpered. He is going to skin me alive. Relax, G.I. Joe, Janine said, pulling a flash drive out of the laptop. She tossed it to me. I caught it, fumbled it, and then caught it again before it hit the floor. Progress, Janine nodded. Now listen to me. You go straight to the boardroom. Do not stop for coffee. Do not stop to pet a dog. Do not look at any ladders, mirrors, or black cats. I got this, I said, grabbing my purse. Sizzle, load up. Sizzle scampered into her travel carrier. She seemed to sense we were going on a mission. I'm driving, Janine announced, grabbing Benji's car keys from his belt. Hey, Benji protested. Shut up and get in the car, shotgun, Janine ordered. Benji scrambled to follow her. Yes, ma'am. We took the elevator down. My heart was pounding. I was marching into a den of wolves with nothing but a flash drive and a badger. As we stepped into the garage, I tripped over my own feet. I stumbled, grabbed a fire extinguisher to steady myself, and accidentally pulled the pin. Psst. White foam exploded everywhere, covering Benji head to toe. I stood there, frozen. Janine wiped foam off her leather jacket. She looked at me. Okay, she said. That counts as your one disaster for the trip. We should be safe now. Sorry, Benji, I whispered to the snowman-looking bodyguard. It's okay, Benji coughed, spitting out foam. I like the minty taste. We piled into the car. The war for the city was on, and the Hart sisters were bringing the heavy artillery. Chapter 22. The marshmallow and the assassin Janine drove Benji's sedan like she was auditioning for a stunt driver role in an action movie. We drifted around the corner of 5th and Main, scattering pigeons and causing a taxi driver to question his life choices. Janine! Benji shrieked from the passenger seat. He was still covered in dried fire extinguisher foam, making him look like an abominable snowman in a suit. That was a red light? It was dark orange, Janine argued, swerving into the underground parking lane of Moretti Tower. Besides, laws are just suggestions when you're saving the world. We screeched to a halt in the VIP bay. I clutched the flash drive in my hand so tight I thought I might crush it. Okay, I said, unbuckling. We need to get to the 50th floor. Security is tight. I have my badge, Benji said, trying to wipe white powder off his eyebrows. But I look like a marshmallow that fell on a barbershop floor. It adds mystery, Janine said, patting his foamy shoulder. Let's go. We hit the elevators. The lobby was oddly quiet. Too quiet. Mercer's men are here, Benji whispered, reaching for his hip before remembering he'd left his gun in the car to wipe the sticky foam out of the safety mechanism. I can smell them, cheap cologne and desperation. 3 men in gray suits stepped out from behind a pillar. They weren't Rocco's security. Going up? The middle one asked with a sneer. Actually, Janine said, stepping in front of me, we're the cleaning crew, specifically the pest control. Get them, the man ordered. The men lunged. I stepped back, preparing to run. But my heel caught on a rubber floor mat. I flailed, grabbing the nearest object to steady myself. That object happened to be a freestanding metal ashtray bin filled with sand. It tipped. The heavy metal base swung down like a pendulum. It slammed into the shin of the lead attacker with a sickening clang. Ow! He screamed, hopping on one foot. Simultaneously, Benji, despite looking like a dessert topping, tackled the second guy. Janine handled the third. She didn't punch him. She just looked him in the eye and said, "Your haircut looks like your mother cut it with a lawnmower." The man paused, emotionally devastated. That pause was all Janine needed to kick him in the kneecap. "Elevator!" I yelled, scrambling up. We dove into the open elevator car. I mashed the closed door button. The doors slid shut just as the hopping man tried to grab us. "See?" I panted, leaning against the wall. "My clumsiness is a weapon." "Remind me to never stand next to you near heavy machinery," Benji wheezed. Chapter 23. The Flying Drive. The elevator dinged at the 30th floor, the executive level. The boardroom doors were just down the hall. We could hear shouting coming from inside. "Stay here," I told Benji and Janine. "Guard the exit." "What?" Janine argued. "No way, I'm coming in." "Jen, you can't," I said. "If this goes wrong, I need you outside to call the police. Or the zoo." I grabbed Sizzle's carrier. "It's just me and the badger." I took a deep breath, adjusted my dress, which still had dried fire extinguisher foam on the hem, and marched to the double oak doors. I didn't knock. I kicked them open. Bam! The room went silent. Rocco was standing at the head of the table, looking furious. His tie was gone, his sleeves rolled up. Mercer, a slick man with a ponytail and a suit that looked like it was made of lizard skin, was standing opposite him, looking smug. The council members looked bored and terrified. "Sorry I'm late," I announced, my voice echoing. Traffic was a nightmare, and we had a slight foam incident. "Lucky?" Rocco's eyes went wide. "I told you to stay put." "And I told you that you forgot your lunch," I said, holding up the flash drive. Mercer saw the drive. His smug expression vanished. "Seize her," he shouted to his lawyers, who were actually just hired muscle in cheap suits. 2 men started toward me. "Rocco, catch!" I yelled. I pulled my arm back to throw the flash drive down the length of the massive table. I aimed perfectly. I visualized the arc. I threw it. And because I am Lucky Hart, my fingers didn't let go at the right moment. The drive didn't arc gracefully to Rocco. Instead, it spiked directly into the floor, bounced sideways, hit a glass pitcher of water, and skittered under the massive redwood table. "Oops," I whispered. "Get the drive!" Mercer screamed. Chaos erupted. Men were diving under the table. Board members were shrieking and climbing onto their chairs. "Sizzle!" I shouted, unzipping the carrier. "Fetch!" The honey badger shot out of the bag like a furry cannonball. She didn't care about the drive. She just saw the ankles of Mercer's hired thugs who were rushing toward us, lots of delicious ankles moving in the darkness. She dove into the fray. Immediately, screams of pain echoed from beneath the wood. "My leg! It has teeth! Why is it so fast?" Rocco didn't dive. He vaulted over the table. He landed in front of me just as Mercer tried to rush me. Rocco didn't even use his fists. He just shoved Mercer backward with a single hand to the chest. Mercer flew 10 feet and crashed into the beverage cart. "Nobody," Rocco growled, his eyes blazing, "touches my mate." Chapter 24. The Silver Moon Scandal. While the men were screaming and Sizzle was conducting a reign of terror under the table, I dropped to my hands and knees. "Where is it?" I muttered, crawling on the carpet. "Come on, stupid technology." I saw a glint of silver near Charles Stanton's foot, the flash drive. I scrambled for it, but Charles Stanton reached for it too. "I'll take that," Stanton sneered. He was working with Mercer. I knew it. "No," I lunged, but before I could reach it, a small black and white blur intercepted. Sizzle emerged from the darkness. She clamped her jaws onto the flash drive. "Sizzle! Drop it!" I commanded. "Do not eat the evidence." Stanton tried to grab the badger. Sizzle growled, a sound like a chainsaw starting up, and snapped at his fingers. Stanton recoiled, falling back into his chair. Sizzle trotted over to me, looking very pleased with herself. She dropped the slobbery flash drive into my hand. "Good girl," I gasped. "Remind me to buy you a whole cow." I stood up. Rocco had Mercer pinned against the wall by his throat. The room was silent again, save for the whimpering of the men under the table. "Rocco!" I held up the drive. "Plug it in." I tossed it to him. This time, he was close enough that even I couldn't miss. He caught it one-handed. He shoved Mercer away, wiped the badger drool off the drive onto his shirt sleeve, and jammed it into the main AV console. The massive screen behind the head of the table flickered to life. Janine's file appeared. The Silver Moon Charity, ledger, detailed receipts scrolled by. Item, 50 crates of silver nitrate. Item, illegal surveillance equipment. Item, bribe payment to council member Charles Stanton. The room gasped. Everyone looked at Charles Stanton. Stanton turned pale. It's a fabrication. It's AI. The offshore account receiving the bribes is registered to your biometric ID, Marcus, Rocco said, his voice cold as ice. And the purchase orders are dated from Mercer's personal IP address. The oldest council member, a woman named Elder Thorne, stood up. She looked at Mercer, then at Stanton. "This is treason," she declared. "Against the pack law." She pointed a bony finger at Rocco. "Alpha Moretti, you have permission to execute judgment." Rocco looked at Mercer, who was trembling. Then he looked at me. I was disheveled, covered in dust, holding a growling badger. "No," Rocco said, straightening his cuffs. "I am a businessman. I don't need to get my hands dirty." He pressed a button on the intercom. "Security? Escort Mr. Mercer and Mr. Stanton to the holding cells. The police are already on their way." He walked over to me. He ignored the council. He ignored the chaos. He pulled me into his arms and kissed me right in front of the board of directors. "You," he whispered against my lips, "are the most chaotic, frustrating, wonderful creature on this planet." "I try," I smiled, leaning into him. From the floor, Sizzle let out a loud burp. "Meeting adjourned," Rocco announced. Chapter 25. The New Sheriff in Town. The morning after the boardroom coup, I woke up to a strange sound. It sounded like chanting. I crawled out of bed, wrapped myself in Rocco's silk robe, which trailed 3 feet behind me on the floor, and shuffled into the living room. The sight before me was baffling. Sizzle, my honey badger, was sitting on top of the grand piano. She was wearing a tiny, custom-made tactical vest that said K9 unit on the side. Standing around the piano were 5 of Rocco's terrifying security guards, including Benji. They were standing at attention. "All hail General Sizzle," Benji whispered. "Hail," the other guards murmured, looking terrified. Sizzle hissed in approval and accepted a piece of high-grade prosciutto from Benji's hand. "What?" I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "Is happening?" The guards jumped. Benji spun around. "Morning, Miss Hart. We are just paying respects to the new head of security. You guys know she's a badger, right? She eats grubs and fights snakes. She doesn't have a tactical strategy." "She bit Charles Stanton," Benji said with reverence. "She is the chosen one." Rocco walked in from the kitchen, holding 2 mugs of coffee. He looked annoyingly perfect for 8 a.m., dressed in a crisp white shirt and slacks. "They are afraid of her," Rocco explained, handing me a mug. "It is good for morale, keeps them on their toes." "She's wearing a vest, Rocco." "It's Kevlar," he shrugged. "I cannot have my assets undefended." He walked over and kissed me, a quick proprietary peck on the lips. "Get dressed," he said. "We have a press conference at noon. The media wants to know why 2 board members were arrested and why a badger was seen entering the building." "I am not going on TV," I argued. "I have a face for radio and a coordination level for sleeping." "You are going," Rocco said, his eyes gleaming. "You are part of the story now, Lucky. You are the anchor." I thought I was the consultant? That too, but mostly, the press loves a damsel. "I am not a damsel," I grumbled, taking a sip of coffee. "I am a biological hazard." As if to prove my point, I leaned against the piano. My elbow hit a key. Plink. Sizzle jumped, startled. She launched herself off the piano and landed squarely on Benji's head. "Man down!" Benji yelled, flailing. Rocco just sipped his coffee. "See? Entertainment." Chapter 26. The Accidental Luna. Getting to the lobby was an ordeal. Not because of my clumsiness, though I did trip over a potted plant, but because of the people. Every employee we passed stopped walking. They turned to face us, and then they bowed. Not a full waist bow, but a distinct tilt of the head. "Why are they doing that?" I whispered to Rocco, clutching his arm. "Do I have toothpaste on my face?" "They are acknowledging you," Rocco murmured, guiding me through the crowd. "Acknowledging me as what? The girl who accidentally soaked the head of security with a fire extinguisher?" As the Luna, a voice said from behind us. It was Janine. She was wearing sunglasses indoors and looking very pleased with herself. Luna? I hissed. Like the moon? Or the moth? Luna means queen of the pack, you uncultured swine, Janine explained, falling into step beside us. Since you helped take down the bad guys, and since Rocco clearly wants to have your babies, the pack sees you as the alpha female. I am not an alpha anything, I protested. I can't even open a jar of pickles without help. We reached the front desk. The receptionist, a woman named Sheila who usually looked at me like I was a stain on the carpet, stood up abruptly. Good morning, Luna Hart, she chirped. I have your mail, and a gift. She pushed a heavy box across the counter. A gift? I asked, wary. From the accounting department, Sheila smiled. I opened the box. Inside was a 10-pound bone-in ham. A ham? I stared at it. It is a traditional offering, Rocco said, looking amused. It means they respect your ability to provide. I didn't provide anything. I threw a flash drive under a table. And Sizzle retrieved it, Rocco said. Technically, Sizzle is the provider, but you control the beast, so you get the ham. I looked at the ham. I looked at the Boeing employees. I looked at Puddle, who was hiding behind a decorative fern because the floor wax was too shiny. I can't be a Luna, I whispered to Rocco. I'll accidentally declare war on a neighboring pack because I mispronounced a word. Don't worry, Rocco squeezed my hand. I will do the talking, you just stand there and look ominous. I can do ominous, I lied. Or constipated. It's a fine line. Chapter 27. The hot mic. The press room was packed. Flashes went off like strobe lights, blinding me instantly. Rocco led me to a podium that had about 50 microphones taped to it. Mr. Moretti, a reporter yelled. Is it true that Charles Stanton was selling company secrets? Mr. Moretti, who is the woman? A reporter yelled. Is she the new vice president? Rocco raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. It was that alpha magic again. Charles Stanton and Mercer have been removed from their positions. Rocco's voice boomed, deep and authoritative. Moretti Holdings is under new management protocols. We are purging the corruption. And the woman? A reporter from the City Gazette asked, pointing her pen at me. Is she the new vice president? Rocco looked at me. He smirked. She is my partner. The room erupted. Partner? In business, in life, in crime? Ms. Hart. The reporter turned to me. What is your role in the company restructuring? I froze. My mind went blank. Don't say anything stupid. Don't say anything stupid. I leaned toward the microphone. Screech! Feedback whined through the speakers, making everyone cover their ears. Sorry, I yelled. My bad luck. Electronics hate me. I tapped the mic. Is this thing on? Okay. Hi, I'm Lucky. My role? Mostly I manage the animals. I meant the actual animals, Sizzle and Puddle, but the press didn't know that. Animals? The reporter asked, scribbling furiously. You refer to the former board members as animals? Well, yeah, I stammered. I mean, have you seen them eat? It's messy, and they growl a lot when you take their toys away. Rocco choked. He turned away from the camera, his shoulders shaking with laughter. Ms. Hart, another reporter shouted, is it true you used a biological weapon to subdue the intruders? If by biological weapon you mean a badger with an attitude problem, then yes, I said honestly. But Sizzle is really a sweetheart once you get to know her. She just has boundary issues. Sizzle? The press was confused. My associate, I corrected. And what is your strategy for the future of Moretti Holdings? I looked at Rocco. He gave me a tiny nod, encouraging me. My strategy? I said, grabbing the podium so hard my knuckles turned white. My strategy is to make sure nobody gets eaten, and to maybe fix the automatic doors in the lobby. Seriously, they're a death trap. I gestured with my hand for emphasis. As I did, my bracelet caught on the water pitcher sitting on the podium. It tipped. Water cascaded directly onto the pants of the reporter in the front row. "Oh no," I gasped. "I am so sorry. Do you have a towel?" The room went silent. Then, Rocco stepped up to the mic. He put his arm around me, pulling me into his side. "As you can see," Rocco said, his voice brimming with pride, "Ms. Hart brings a refreshing fluidity to the company, that is all." He guided me off stage as cameras flashed. "Fluidity?" I whispered as we walked backstage. "Really?" "You called the board of directors animals," Rocco laughed, kissing my temple, "and you watered the press." "It was perfect. They are terrified of you now. They think I'm crazy." "No," Rocco said, opening the door to the green room where Janine was eating a sandwich. "They think you are unpredictable. And in this city, unpredictability is power." Janine looked up. "Did you insult anyone?" "I called the board animals and spilled water on a guy from the Gazette," I admitted. Janine nodded approval. "Solid work. You're learning." Chapter 28. The matriarch. I had seen Rocco face down armed gunmen, hostile board members, and a honey badger with a vendetta against footwear. He had never flinched, but today Rocco Moretti was pacing. "She hates clutter," Rocco muttered, straightening a magazine on the coffee table by exactly 2 millimeters. "And she hates weakness, and she hates tardiness." "Who?" I asked, watching him from the couch where I was trying to keep Sizzle from eating a throw pillow. "The Pope?" "Worse." Rocco stopped pacing and looked at me with genuine fear in his amber eyes. "My grandmother, Nonna Maria." "Nonna?" I laughed. "Rocco, she's a grandma. Does she bake cookies? Knit sweaters?" "She is the Grand Alpha," Rocco said darkly. "She ran the pack for 40 years before I was born. She once ended a clan war by staring at the opposing Alpha until he cried. She does not bake cookies. She bakes the bones of her enemies." "Oh," I swallowed. "That sounds distinctive." "She is coming to inspect you." Rocco dropped the bomb. "She saw the news. She saw the partner comment. She wants to see if you are worthy." "I am definitely not worthy," I said, standing up. "I'm wearing socks that don't match. I should hide." "Can I hide in the pantry?" "Too late." Benji's voice crackled over the intercom. "The eagle has landed. I repeat, the eagle is in the elevator, and she brought backup." The elevator doors slid open. Out stepped a woman who stood maybe 5 feet tall. She had silver hair pulled back into a bun so tight it looked painful. She wore a black Chanel suit and walked with a cane that looked like it concealed a sword. Behind her walked a younger woman, tall, gorgeous, with flowing dark hair and a dress that cost more than my car. She looked like a supermodel wolf. "Rocco," the older woman said. Her voice was like dry leaves crushing underfoot. "Nonna." Rocco bowed. He actually bowed. Nonna Maria walked into the room. She didn't look at the view. She didn't look at the furniture. She looked directly at me. Her eyes were the same amber as Rocco's, but colder. She scanned me from head to toe. "So," she said, "this is the anchor? She looks fragile, like a biscuit left out in the rain." "Hi," I waved awkwardly. "I'm lucky. Nice cane?" Nonna ignored me. She turned to the supermodel behind her. "Isabella, what do you think? Does she have the bearing of a Luna?" Isabella smiled, a perfect predatory smile. "She has the bearing of a snack, Nonna." Janine, who was eating an apple in the kitchen, leaned out. "Careful, Barbie. Snacks have calories. You look like you haven't eaten a carb since the 90s. Nonna turned slowly to Janine. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. "And who," Nonna asked, "is the loud one?" "That's my sister," I interjected quickly, stepping in front of Janine. "She's protective," Nonna hummed. "Interesting. Rocco, prepare tea. We have much to discuss. Specifically why you have chosen a human disaster over Isabella here, who has been bred for this role since birth." "This is going to go great," I whispered to myself. Chapter 29. Porcelain and Predators. The tea service was set up in the formal dining room. Rocco sat at the head, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else on Earth. I sat to his right. Nonna and Isabella sat opposite us. It was excruciating. "So, Lucky," Isabella said, stirring her tea with elegant grace, "tell us about your lineage. Which pack do you hail from?" "The pack of Hart," I said. "We hail from Ohio. My dad sells insurance for recreational vehicles. My mom makes jewelry out of sea glass." Isabella covered a laugh with a napkin. "How quaint. And your education?" "Did you study pack politics?" "I studied dog psychology," I said. "I know how to stop a chihuahua from peeing on the rug. It's surprisingly relevant to corporate meetings." Rocco choked on his tea. He quickly covered it with a cough. Nonna watched me like a hawk. "You are clumsy, child. I saw the video of the press conference. You spilled water on a journalist. A Luna must be poised, graceful." "I'm working on it," I said, reaching for the sugar bowl. "Don't drop it, don't drop it." My hand shook slightly. I grabbed the tongs. I picked up a sugar cube. Success! I moved it toward my cup. But then, disaster. Sizzle, who had been locked in the guest room, had apparently picked the lock again. She scuttled under the table. She saw Isabella's expensive, strappy heels. Sizzle did not like shoes. Under the table, Sizzle licked Isabella's ankle. Isabella shrieked. She kicked out her leg. Her knee hit the underside of the table. The table jolted. My hand jerked. The sugar cube flew out of the tongs. It hit the rim of my saucer, bounced, hit the spoon, and catapulted into the air. It landed directly in Nonna's tea. Ploop. Hot tea splashed up, landing on Nonna's pristine white collar. The room went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Isabella looked horrified. Rocco closed his eyes, accepting his fate. I stood up. "I am so sorry. I have a stain stick. Hold on." "Sit down," Nonna commanded. Her voice wasn't loud, but it froze me in place. She picked up a napkin and dabbed at the tea stain. Then she looked under the table. Sizzle crawled out, looking innocent. Wearing a string of pearls she must have stolen from Nonna's purse on the chair next to me. "A badger," Nonna said flatly, "wearing my jewelry." "She likes pearls," I whispered. "She thinks they're eggs." Nonna looked at the badger. Then she looked at me. Then she looked at Rocco. "You live in a zoo, Rocco?" "It is a lively household, Nonna," Rocco said firmly. "And Lucky brings life to it." Nonna stared at Sizzle. Sizzle stared back, hissing softly. To everyone's shock, Nonna didn't scream. She didn't order us executed. She reached into her purse, pulled out a hard peppermint candy, and tossed it to the badger. Sizzle caught it, crunched it loudly, and burped. "It has spirit," Nonna muttered. "Unlike you, Isabella, you screamed at a lick. This rat has more courage." "It's a badger," I corrected automatically. "Quiet, child," Nonna snapped, but there was no heat in it. "Pour me more tea, and try not to drown me this time." Chapter 30. The Verdict. The tea survived the rest of the hour without fatalities. After lunch, Nonna demanded a private audience with Rocco in his study. I was left in the living room with Isabella, Janine, and Benji. Isabella was checking her makeup, looking strangely relaxed for someone losing a billionaire. "Honestly?" Isabella sighed, snapping her compact shut. Isabella was checking her makeup, looking strangely relaxed for someone losing a billionaire. "Honestly?" Isabella sighed, snapping her compact shut. "I'm relieved. You can have him. He growls in his sleep. It's creepy. I prefer a man who doesn't look like he wants to eat the waiter." "Because she's real," Janine said from the couch, sharpening a nail file. "And because she doesn't treat him like a walking bank account or a scary monster, she treats him like a guy." "He is a monster," Isabella said, shivering slightly. "Did you see his eyes? When he gets angry? It's terrifying. I was trained to handle him, but I don't like it." I looked at her. "You're afraid of him?" "Everyone is afraid of him," Isabella said. "He's the apex. He breaks things." "He fixes things," I said softly. "He fixed my door. He fixed my business. He breaks doors to get me out." The study door opened. Rocco and Nonna stepped out. Rocco looked relieved. Nonna looked inscrutable. She walked over to me. She leaned on her cane, peering into my face. "You are not what I expected," Nonna said. "You lack grace. You lack lineage. You are a magnet for disaster." My heart sank. "I know." "However," Nonna continued, turning to look at Rocco, "my grandson has not smiled in 20 years. Today he laughed when you dropped the sugar, and he defended you when I insulted you." She poked my shin with her cane. "A wolf who cannot protect his mate is weak, but a mate who makes the wolf want to protect her, that is power." She turned to Isabella. "Come, Isabella, we are leaving. This place smells like wet dog and peppermint." "But Nonna," Isabella started. The arrangement is void," Nonna stated. "Rocco has chosen his calamity. Let him deal with the headaches." She walked to the elevator. Before the doors closed, she looked at Sizzle, who was chewing on the leg of the couch. "Bring the badger to Sunday dinner," Nonna said. "I want to see if it will bite the bishop." The doors closed. I let out a breath I'd been holding for 2 hours. Did she just invite the badger to dinner? "She likes strength," Rocco said, walking over and wrapping his arms around my waist. "And apparently she thinks Sizzle is a kindred spirit." "And us?" I asked, leaning back against him. "Are we okay?" "We are better than okay," Rocco murmured, kissing the top of my head. "We are official." Nonna approved. "Great," I said. "Does that mean I have to learn how to curtsy?" "Please don't," Rocco laughed. "You'll trip and take out a waiter. I love you just the way you are." "I love you too," I whispered. Just then, a loud crash came from the kitchen. We both looked. The espresso machine had exploded. Steam was hissing everywhere. "My bad," I said. "I looked at it funny." Rocco sighed, but he was smiling. "I'll call the plumber." "You just stand there and look pretty." Chapter 31. The digital ghost piece at the Moretti penthouse lasted exactly 24 hours. We were in the living room. Rocco was working on a tablet, looking very CEO-ish. Sizzle was napping in a sunbeam, twitching as she dreamed of ankle biting. I was trying to fold laundry without strangling myself with a sleeve. Janine was at the dining table, typing furiously on her new juice-proof laptop. "Something is wrong," Janine announced, breaking the silence. "Did the internet go down?" I asked, dropping a sock. "If so, it wasn't me. I haven't touched the router." "No," Janine frowned. "It's Mercer's files. We thought he was the boss, right? The mastermind laundering money?" "He had the snakeskin boots," Rocco said without looking up. "Villains always have terrible footwear." "Rocco, you froze his operating accounts," Janine said, turning the screen toward us. "But that was just pocket change. Look at the cash flow." Mercer was a funnel. The bulk of the money was instantly transferred to an offshore account in the Caymans, an account linked to a shell company called Ghost Protocol. "Ghost Protocol?" I snorted. "That sounds like a bad spy movie." Suddenly, the lights in the penthouse flickered. The smart home system let out a high-pitched whine. The blinds slammed shut automatically, plunging us into darkness. "What did you do?" Rocco stood up, his voice sharp. "I didn't do anything!" Janine yelled, typing faster. "Someone is counter-hacking us! They're in the system!" On the giant TV screen, the corporate logo disappeared. A static image replaced it. A white skull on a black background. "You took my pawn. Now I take your queen." "They're wiping the drives," Janine shouted. "They're trying to delete the evidence of the offshore account. I can't stop it." "Pull the plug," Rocco ordered. I was standing near the main server tower, a blinking tower of expensive technology hidden behind a plant. "On it," I yelled. I lunged for the power cord. Naturally, my foot caught on the rug. I tripped, flailing wildly. I didn't grab the cord. Instead, I body-slammed the entire server tower. Crash. The heavy metal tower tipped over. It hit the marble floor with a sickening crunch. Parts flew everywhere. The lights in the penthouse died completely. Silence. Did that work?" I whispered from the floor, rubbing my elbow. Janine checked her laptop, which was running on battery. "The remote connection is severed. The wipe stopped at 98%. You broke the server, Lucky, but you saved the hard drive." Tactical clumsiness, I groaned. Rocco helped me up. We have a new enemy, someone above Mercer, and they just threatened my queen. He pulled me close. You are not leaving this building. Chapter 32. The Bait. The problem with telling Janine Hart not to leave a building is that she listens to no one. 2 hours later, while Benji was busy trying to repair the server I destroyed and Rocco was on the phone with his lawyers, Janine realized we were out of coffee. To Janine, a lack of caffeine is a bigger emergency than an assassination attempt. I'm just running down to the garage, she had told Benji. I have a satellite modem in the trunk of the sedan. I can bypass their jammer. 30 minutes passed. Where is she? I asked, pacing the living room. Sizzle was pacing with me, sensing my anxiety. Benji, Rocco called out. Where is Janine? Benji looked at his watch, and all the color drained from his face. She went to get the backup modem. She should have been back 10 minutes ago. Rocco's phone rang. It wasn't a number. It was just the word, unknown. Rocco put it on speaker. Moretti, he growled. Hello, Rocco, a distorted voice said. It sounded robotic, cold. You have something of mine, the hard drive. And you have something of mine? Rocco said, his eyes glowing amber. The loud girl? The voice chuckled. Yes, she's very spirited. She bit one of my men, but everyone breaks eventually. I snatched the phone from Rocco. If you hurt her, I yelled, my voice shaking, I will find you and I will unleash the badger. Ah, the anchor, the voice said. The clumsy little human, here is the deal, the hard drive for the sister, and you, Lucky Hart, must deliver it alone. No deal, Rocco snarled. Then the sister dies, the voice said. You have 1 hour, the old shipyard. Dock 4, come alone, Lucky, or we send her back in pieces. The line went dead. Benji dropped to his knees. I let her go. I failed. Rocco looked like he was about to shift right there in the living room. His muscles were spasming, his claws lengthening. He grabbed a heavy crystal vase and crushed it into dust in his hand. I will kill them all, Rocco roared. I will burn the city down. Rocco, stop! I stepped in front of him. I grabbed his face, ignoring the glowing eyes and the fangs. You can't go in there raging. That's what they want. It's a trap. They have Janine, Benji sobbed. I know, I said, my heart feeling like a block of ice. And we are going to get her back. But we aren't doing it your way. We're doing it my way. Rocco looked at me, his chest heaving. Your way? They want a clumsy, helpless human, I said, a dangerous idea forming in my head. So I'm going to give them one. I'm going to be the biggest disaster they've ever seen. Chapter 33. The Bag of Doom. This is insanity, Rocco argued as I packed my bag. You are walking into a lion's den armed with, what is this, marbles? Not just marbles, I said, shoving a bag of glass marbles into my oversized tote bag, a gallon of premium extra virgin olive oil, a can of hairspray, and the cord from the toaster I accidentally ripped out of the wall this morning. Lucky, Rocco grabbed my shoulders. I cannot let you do this. You have to, I said firmly. They said come alone. If they see you, they kill Janine. You have to wait for my signal. What is the signal? You'll know it when you see it, I said. Trust me, my bad luck is an area of effect weapon. If I focus it, I can take down an army. I zipped up the bag. I looked at Sizzle. Sizzle stays, Rocco said. They will spot the badger. Fine, I said, but I need Benji. Benji looked up from the floor where he was despairing. Me? I'm the driver, I said. You drop me off, and you keep the engine running. Can you do that for Janine? Benji stood up. He walked to the hallway closet and pulled out a heavy steel tire iron. His face hardened. I will drive through a wall for her. Good. We took the elevator down. Rocco was vibrating with suppressed rage. He headed for his blacked-out motorcycle to shadow us from a distance, staying just out of sight, waiting for the moment to strike. The drive to the shipyard was tense. The sun was setting, casting long, creepy shadows over the rusted cranes and shipping containers. "Remember," I told Benji as we pulled up to the rusty gate of Dock 4. "When the chaos starts, you get Janine." "What about you?" Benji asked. "I'll be busy," I said, clutching my bag of doom. "Being a disaster." I stepped out of the car. The wind whipped my hair. I stood in the middle of the empty lot, clutching the hard drive, which was actually just a plastic case containing a granola bar because I wasn't giving them the real one. "I'm here!" I shouted, my voice echoing off the metal containers. A spotlight blinded me. 3 SUVs rolled out from behind the crates. A man stepped out. He was wearing a suit that was too clean for a shipyard. He held a gun to Janine's head. Janine was tied up, gagged, and looked furious. She saw me, and her eyes went wide. She shook her head violently. "Run!" I didn't run. I took a step forward and intentionally tripped over my own feet. "Whoops!" I yelled, flailing my arms. I let my bag slide off my shoulder. It hit the ground with a heavy clatter. "Clumsy fool," the man sneered. "Bring me the drive." I smiled at the ground. Showtime. Chapter 34. The Slip and Slide of Death. The man in the suit, the ghost, stepped forward, holding his hand out. "The drive, now, or the sister gets a new breathing hole." Janine, despite being gagged, muffled something that sounded suspiciously like a creative insult involving his mother and a cactus. "Here!" I yelped, stepping forward. I accidentally kicked my oversized tote bag. "Whoops!" The bag tipped over. First came the marbles. Hundreds of glass marbles spilled out onto the concrete dock, clattering loudly like a hailstorm. The 3 bodyguards flanking the ghost looked down, confused. "Marbles?" one asked. "Sorry," I cried, bending down to pick them up. As I did, I grabbed the gallon jug of olive oil I had raided from Rocco's pantry. I squeezed it. Hard. The cap popped off. A gallon of slippery, golden oil exploded across the pavement, coating the marbles, the ground, and the shoes of the lead bodyguard. "What the—" The bodyguard started to step forward. His foot hit a lubricated marble. It was physics in its purest, most comedic form. His leg shot up into the air. He flailed, trying to grab his friend. He missed, spun around like a breakdancer, and face-planted onto the concrete with a wet thwack. "Idiot!" the ghost yelled. "Get her!" The second guard lunged at me. He managed to avoid the first patch of slime, but he didn't account for the can of hairspray I had clumsily kicked rolling toward him. He stepped on the rolling can. His ankle twisted. He went down hard, sliding on his stomach across the slick oil puddle like a human bowling ball, crashing directly into a stack of empty oil drums. Clang, crash, boom. "Oops," I whispered, stepping back. "My bad." The ghost looked around at his incapacitated men. He looked at the sea of marbles and slime. He looked at me. "You," he snarled, raising his gun toward me. "You aren't clumsy, you're insane." "A little bit of both," I said, dropping the act. I reached into my bag and pulled out the last item, a broken toaster cord. I whipped it at him. I missed by a mile, but it distracted him long enough. "Now!" I screamed. Chapter 35. The Wolf and the Marshmallow. The signal was given. From the shadows on top of a shipping container, a roar tore through the night air. It wasn't human. It was the sound of a beast that had been denied its mate. Rocco Moretti launched himself off the container. He landed directly on the hood of the ghost's SUV, crushing the engine block with the impact. Glass shattered. Metal screamed. Rocco stood up from the wreckage. His suit jacket was gone. His shirt was shredded. His claws were out, and his eyes were burning pits of amber fire. "You touched her," Rocco growled, his voice distorted by the shift. "Bad decision." The ghost panicked. He turned his gun toward Rocco and fired. Bang! Bang! Rocco didn't even flinch. He swiped the air, moving faster than the bullets, or maybe he just didn't care. He charged. While Rocco engaged the boss, the third bodyguard, the one holding Janine, was distracted. "Hey, ugly!" The bodyguard turned. Benji was there. He had sprinted from the car. He wasn't a supernatural alpha, he was just a human security guard who really, really liked my sister. He didn't have a weapon, he had a tire iron. "Let go of my future wife!" Benji screamed, a bold declaration, considering they hadn't even gone on a date. He swung the tire iron, he hit the bodyguard in the ribs. The man grunted and dropped Janine. Janine wasted no time. She spun around, ripped the gag off her mouth, and kicked the man squarely in the groin with her combat boot. "Nobody," Janine panted, untying her wrists, "puts me in a corner." She looked at Benji, who was breathing hard, holding the tire iron like Excalibur. "Future wife," she raised an eyebrow. Benji blushed, even in the middle of a battle. Adrenaline? We'll discuss it later," Janine grinned. "Now, hit him again." Chapter 36. The toaster cord of destiny. Rocco had the ghost pinned against a crate. The man was struggling, pulling out a knife. "I am Kessler," the man shouted. "I am the rightful alpha of this city. You stole this territory from my bloodline, Moretti. You are soft." "She didn't weaken me," Rocco snarled, catching Kessler's wrist and snapping it. "She gave me a reason to fight." Kessler screamed, dropping the knife, but with his other hand he pulled a remote from his pocket. "If I go," Kessler laughed, blood on his teeth, "we all go. C4 explosives, under the pier." His thumb hovered over the red button. "No!" Rocco shoved him, but Kessler was too far away to stop the signal. I was standing 10 feet away. I snatched up the broken toaster cord I had thrown earlier from the concrete. I saw the remote in his hand. I didn't think. I just moved. I ran forward to tackle him. Naturally, I stepped on a lubricated marble. My feet flew out from under me. I went horizontal. I was flying through the air. In a desperate attempt to catch myself, I lashed out with the toaster cord. The cord whipped through the air. The plug end wrapped around Kessler's ankle. The momentum of my fall yanked the cord tight. Kessler's legs were pulled out from under him just as his thumb pressed down. He fell backward. The remote flew out of his hand. It spun through the air, arching high over the dark water of the harbor. Splash. The remote sank. No explosion. I landed hard on my stomach, sliding across the pavement until I stopped at Rocco's feet. Silence. Rocco looked at the sinking ripples in the water. He looked at Kessler, who was tangled in a toaster cord and groaning. He looked down at me. The amber glow faded from his eyes, replaced by pure relief and amusement. "Did you just—" Rocco panted, reaching down to help me up. "Did you just defeat a terrorist with a toaster cord?" "It was a calculated strike," I wheezed, wiping oil off my dress. "Don't question my methods." Kessler tried to crawl away. Rocco stepped on his chest, pinning him effortlessly. "It's over, Kessler," Rocco said coldly. "Benji, call the police, and tell them to bring a mop." Janine walked over, limping slightly but looking triumphant. She put an arm around me. "You know," she said, looking at the carnage of marbles, slime, and unconscious bad guys, "Mom and Dad always said your clumsiness was a curse." "Yeah?" I asked, leaning into Rocco's side. "Turns out," Janine smirked, "it's a superpower. You're like a walking natural disaster. I'm so proud." Rocco pulled me close, kissing my forehead, indifferent to the fact that I was covered in blue lubricant. "My lethal little anchor," he whispered. "Remind me never to make you angry near a hardware store." Chapter 37. The Aftermath. The police arrived at the shipyard 10 minutes later. They found a very strange scene: a tied-up billionaire terrorist, a sea of marbles, and sticky oil, who had apparently stowed away in Benji's trunk and chewed her way out during the fight, gnawing on the tires of the police cruisers. "We'll take it from here, Mr. Moretti," the police chief said, eyeing Sizzle nervously. "Do you have a permit for that animal?" "She is a specialized K-9 unit," Rocco lied smoothly, buttoning his shredded shirt. "She is essential for counter-terrorism." Sizzle burped, reinforcing his point. While Rocco dealt with the authorities, I sat on the bumper of the ambulance next to Janine. She had an ice pack on her wrist, and I had a Band-Aid on my chin. Benji was hovering over Janine like a nervous mother hen. "Are you sure you're okay?" Benji asked for the 10th time. "I can carry you to the car." I can carry you to the hospital. I can carry you to a spa." Janine looked at him. She looked at the tire iron he was still clutching in his hand. "You hit a guy," Janine said, a small smile playing on her lips, "with a piece of metal. For me." I panicked," Benji stammered, blushing. "I didn't want them to hurt you." Janine stood up. She grabbed Benji by his tie and pulled him down to her level. "You're an idiot," she whispered. "But you're my idiot. Pick me up at 8 tomorrow. We're getting tacos, and if you're late, I will key your car." Benji looked like he had just won the lottery. "Yes, ma'am. Janine, tacos, 8. Rocco walked over to us. He looked exhausted but lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He extended a hand to me. "Ready to go home, Lucky?" "Home," I repeated. The word tasted sweet. "Yeah, let's go home. But maybe we take the stairs? I think I've used up my luck for the century." Rocco scooped me up into his arms, bridal style. "I told you, I make my own luck, and I am not letting your feet touch the ground until we are safe in bed." Chapter 38. The Headbutt of Love. 3 months later, life had settled into a rhythm. A chaotic, dangerous rhythm, but a rhythm nonetheless. Moretti Holdings was thriving. Janine had been hired as the new head of cybersecurity, mostly so she could legally insult people via email. And I was still the consultant, which mostly meant I stopped Sizzle from eating the interns. Tonight, Rocco was acting weird. He had invited me up to the private roof garden. He had set up candles. Thousands of them. "Oh no," I whispered to myself as I stepped onto the terrace. "Fire hazards everywhere." Rocco was standing by the railing, looking devastating in a tuxedo. He turned when he saw me. "Lucky," he said, his voice tight. "Come here, carefully. Please don't knock anything over." I walked toward him, stepping gingerly over the candles. "Rocco? What's going on? Did we get sued again?" "No." Rocco took my hands. His palms were sweating. The great Alpha Moretti was nervous. "I wanted to ask you something." He took a deep breath. He looked into my eyes. "You are the most frustrating woman I have ever met," he began. "You broke my revolving door. You ruined my server. You sprayed me with water." "I'm sensing a but coming," I said nervously. "But," Rocco smiled, "you also fixed me. You silenced the noise in my head. You made my house a home." He let go of my hand. He reached into his pocket. He started to kneel. "Lucky Hart," he said, going down on one knee. Panic flared in my brain. "He's proposing. Don't mess this up. Don't mess this up." "Oh my God," I gasped. I took a step forward to hug him, but, true to form, I stepped on the hem of my long dress. I pitched forward. "Rocco!" I yelled. Rocco looked up just in time to see my forehead coming toward his face at high speed. Bonk! Our heads collided with a sound like 2 coconuts hitting each other. "Ow!" we both yelled, falling backward onto the turf. We lay there for a second, staring at the stars, clutching our foreheads. "Did I kill the mood?" I groaned. "I definitely killed the mood." Rocco started to laugh. He rolled onto his side, propping himself up on one elbow. He had a red mark on his forehead, but he was grinning. He pulled a small velvet box out of his pocket. "You nearly gave me a concussion," he said. "It's perfect." He opened the box. Inside was a diamond that was arguably large enough to be a tripping hazard. "Will you marry me, Lucky?" he asked. "Before you accidentally kill me?" "Yes," I whispered, tears pricking my eyes. "Yes, I will. But you have to promise to wear a helmet." "Deal," he said, and kissed me under the stars and the safely distant candles. Chapter 39. The Wet Wedding. The wedding day arrived with a forecast of sunny and clear. Naturally, 5 minutes before the ceremony, the sky turned black, thunder cracked, and the heavens opened up. "It's raining!" I wailed, looking out the window of the bridal suite. "My hair, the cake, the guests." Janine was busy fixing my veil. "Relax. Rain is good luck, or maybe bad luck. Who cares? It's water. You're good with water. I can't walk down the aisle in mud. You're walking, Janine ordered. Benji is holding an umbrella. Move. The ceremony was held in the garden of the estate. The guests, pack members, board directors, and terrified caterers were huddled under umbrellas. The music started. I stepped out. I didn't trip. I didn't fall. But as I reached the altar, where Rocco stood looking wet but incredibly handsome, Sizzle decided to make her entrance. Sizzle was the ring bearer. She had a pillow strapped to her back. She saw a squirrel. "Sizzle, no!" I hissed. Sizzle bolted. She ran through the legs of the priest, who screamed, chased the squirrel up a trellis and got stuck. "The rings!" the priest shouted. "The badger has the rings!" Rocco didn't panic. He looked at me, rain dripping down his face, ruining his expensive suit. He looked at the chaos, the screaming priest, the climbing badger. He laughed. He grabbed my hand. "Forget the rings," Rocco announced to the crowd. "I don't need a ring to know she's mine." He grabbed the priest by the collar. "Skip to the I do part." "I do," I yelled over the thunder. "I do," Rocco roared. He kissed me in the pouring rain, soaking wet, with a badger hissing from a trellis above us. It was a disaster. It was a mess. It was the best wedding in history. On Chapter 40, The Spray Bottle, 1 year later, I walked into the nursery, holding a warm bottle of milk. "Shh," I whispered. "Don't wake him." Rocco was sitting in the rocking chair, holding our son, Leo. The baby was fast asleep, a tuft of dark hair on his head. Curled up at Rocco's feet was Puddle, snoring loudly. And curled up in the crib, because we gave up trying to keep her out, was Sizzle, guarding the baby like a furry gargoyle. "He has your eyes," I said, leaning over the chair. "He has your nose," Rocco whispered, tracing the baby's face. "And hopefully my balance. If he inherits your coordination, we are going to need to pad the walls." "Hey," I nudged him. "I haven't tripped in 3 days." "You fell into the fountain yesterday," Rocco reminded me. "That was a tactical dip. It was hot." Rocco chuckled. He stood up carefully, transferring Leo to the crib. Sizzle sniffed the baby, gave a little chitter of approval, and went back to sleep. We walked out into the hallway. On the mantel of the fireplace, in a place of honor usually reserved for trophies or heirlooms, sat a plastic object. It was a blue spray bottle. Rocco saw me looking at it. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "Best investment I ever made," he murmured. "The bottle?" "The water," he said, "and the girl holding it." I turned in his arms. "You know, technically I'm still the boss. I have the bottle." Rocco smirked, that dangerous, wolfish smirk that still made my knees weak. "You can be the boss, Lucky," he growled softly, leaning in to kiss me, "as long as I get to be the one who catches you when you fall." "Deal," I said. I leaned up to kiss him. I stood on my tiptoes. My foot slipped on the hardwood floor. I tipped backward, but before I could hit the ground, strong arms caught me. "Gotcha," Rocco whispered, and I knew no matter how clumsy, unlucky, or disastrous my life got, he always would. The end.